Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:06 here on O'Connor and Company. Good morning, Washington, D.C. and the environs hereabout. Thanks for joining us here and getting your day started right. Thank you to Joe Concha for filling in yesterday as Julie carried the load here on the show, and Joe got to sort of just sit there in the leg chair and look pretty.
No, he was great. He was great. He did a lot of the work.
And thank you to Hans von Spakovsky on Friday for doing the same. I had a couple of days off there for some family business, and it's good to be back. Joining us at 7:35, Congressman Brandon Gill of Texas, and then at 8:05, Adam Gillette of Accuracy in Media. That's Julie Gunlock. I'm Larry O'Connor. And joining us now, friend of the program and friend of this nation, Betsy DeVos, former Education Secretary in Trump 1.0. Secretary DeVos, always good to speak with you. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Larry and Julie. It's great to be with you this morning.
There's so much to discuss with you, especially since you've been such an advocate in trying to protect Title IX. I want to start there, actually, because yesterday we saw this lamentable spectacle in the Senate where every Democrat lined up to not even move forward with a vote on this issue of protecting and memorializing in law what President Trump was able to do with an executive order. We just spoke with Peyton McNabb, by the way, the female volleyball player in high school who has permanent brain injuries now because a biological male identifying as transgender spiked a ball at her face. I'd love for you to sort of comment on, since you've been such a devoted advocate in trying to protect women's sports, I'd love for you to comment on the political landscape we find ourselves in now.
Well, I think it's just appalling that the Democrats couldn't even bring themselves to cast a yes on a procedural vote that would have put them all on. It will put them all on record. If they think that they've stopped the issue by not advancing it in the Senate, they have another guest coming. This is just appalling that every single Democrat voted against protecting women and ensuring their equal opportunity to participate in sports, protecting them from biological males. It is just it's mind-boggling.
And this is something they're going to have to face when this next round is up for election. How do you think this will impact Democrats, and will people call them out on this?
Well, we saw what an issue it became in the last general election this past fall. And I think that issue is, I think that it's only going to become more top of mind for people who see things can continue to happen on tracks and on courts and playing fields across the country, where those who are running these sports programs are not respecting the executive orders of the president. And I think it's going to continue to be a growing issue until it is once and finally clarified that women's sports are for women, biological women only.
Yes.
There's going to be an open Senate seat in your home state of Michigan, my home state of Michigan as well, and Senator Gary Peters, who joined his fellow Democrats in filibustering this bill, he's decided not to run for a third term. That open seat could make a difference here the next time this goes around. Do you have any interest in serving in the Senate? I mean, you've been a cabinet secretary, so I don't know why you would do that, but Buttigieg is thinking of running, so what do you think?
Save us.
Well, that is going to be a very key seat. As you say, very few opportunities with open seats, and so we have a number of folks in Michigan that are looking at the race. And as you probably know, we have an open governor's seat as well in 2026. Yeah. So it's going to be a particularly interesting time for Michigan, and we have every opportunity to continue to carry through on the success that we had in 2024. But it's going to be a big year for Michigan for sure.
Yeah, but are you considering either of those races?
I am not. I like helping people get elected to office, and
All right.
I will continue.
You'll be
to do
engaged
that.
either way, though. All right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let's turn to the confirmation yesterday of Linda McMahon, who is now the education secretary position you held, and she's basically said her job right now is to try to shut that thing down. What do you think her chances are in succeeding?
Yes, well, first of all, congratulations to Linda. She is the person for the job, and I'm so excited for her and for the country because she does have a very full intent to carry out the president's mission, which is to dismantle and return the power for education to the states, to parents, and they're going to set about to do that. That's already been put into motion by those who got in there ahead of her, but she is very committed to seeing that through. We know that the Department of Education has been an abject failure in its mission, and parents across the country, grandparents, people in general their eyes have opened to that, particularly since COVID. But this decline and this failure has been evident for several decades. It's really come into focus today, and it is time to move these decisions and move the power back to those closer to the children. And they're going to do it. I'm absolutely confident of that.
I'm just interested in your opinion on the teachers' unions, which retain so much power in the education field. What can be done to reduce the power of these teachers' unions, and how can we encourage? There are good teachers out there that don't agree with Randy Weingarten's way of controlling the education system in this country. How do we encourage teachers to walk away from that union?
Well, Julie, you're so right. There are so many great teachers, and they are bound to a system that does not work for them. It does not work for kids. And education freedom is going to actually change that dynamic for teachers and for students. You know, there's been over a dozen states across the country now that have introduced universal education freedom or school choice to the students in that state. And the more opportunities parents have to make other decisions than their assigned school, the more opportunity teachers also have to find education settings, schools, start new schools themselves, become part of a school that's working for kids that isn't, to leave a school that isn't working for them. And I like to really draw the distinction. We call them teachers' unions, but they don't represent the teachers.
Right.
And they are in the business of adding to their numbers by any measure they can, and it's all kinds of support and different staff that has nothing to do with educating the kids, but they're all about power. They're all about amassing more control and more resources to try to demand more control. And so they don't represent teachers, and good teachers are going to have every opportunity with more and more education freedom being introduced. Importantly, at the federal level, we know we have an opportunity to also help give some rocket fuel to what's going on, and that is through the federal tax credit legislation, Education Choices for Children Act. And we are working very hard to make sure that President Trump's commitment to that is part of a reconciliation plan. And that will really provide a lot of opportunity for students and for teachers.
Betsy DeVos, former education secretary under Donald Trump, the first time around, commenting on Linda McMahon, the one who potentially could be the last Secretary of Education if all goes well. Julie and I had a great time spending time with you in Scranton at the kickoff for that Save Title IX bus tour. And there's obviously still work to be done there, but we're really have great admiration for your commitment.
Thanks for all you do. Thanks for all you do.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of people give lip service to these issues, but you really show up.
Yes, you do.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. You guys have a great day.
You too. That's Betsy DeVos. Good person.
She's
and
great.
boy, it sounds like she's going to be invested in those two very big races in Michigan.
That's right.
By the way, with Pete Buttigieg now deciding whether
she'd
he
make
wants
a
to be
great
governor
senator, though. She really would.
Yes, she would. But I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. Lord knows I tried. It's 7:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with
WMAL, making sense of the news.
Interesting reaction here by Attorney General Pam Bondi to the debacle, the fiasco that was the Epstein file rollout last week that wasn't. I wasn't on the air on Friday, but that was just a bad look all around, frankly. In multiple ways. I wanted to remind everybody that, there's people celebrating and holding up the binder. Oh, we got the names. Every name that's on that Epstein list that we're all sort of, salivating over and wanting to get information about, is a perpetrator for a little girl, a victim of horrific crimes. And I hope we don't lose sight of that.
They certainly did that day. That was a disgusting show. I was very unhappy to see them dancing around and laughing.
And it wasn't a good look for 100%. And it wasn't a good look for the Attorney General,
no, it wasn't.
Who I think was flipping mad when she found out that information is being withheld by the FBI office in New York. And well, now the repercussions and the fallout seem to be resonating. First of all, Bondi now says that the FBI finally did deliver what she's calling a truckload of Epstein files after she put out a hard deadline. This came on Friday of last week. But the top FBI official from this region in New York has been told to turn in his resignation, and he did.
Good.
His name is James Dennehy. Just wait for him to be the next martyr for cable news.
Oh, of course.
It'll be put up there with Andrew McCabe and all these other things. Apparently, he sent an email out 1 month ago, right when Trump was inaugurated. He put out an email to his team of FBI agents in his region in New York, telling them to dig in against the new president. Yeah. They really don't quite understand how the Constitution works. And so he is now...
Yeah, Larry, yesterday, Joe DeGeneva had quite a lot to say about this New York office and how the corruption really stems from this office, and they are rogue and they act completely without direction from D.C., and how important it is that Kash Patel really clean this office out. But Joe also was frustrated. He said that there are some delays in getting people in place that can do just that, can help Kash Patel and Pam Bondi get this New York office in shape. So Joe was very frustrated yesterday. I thought it was a very interesting segment with him talking about this office.
It's funny. I was with friends over the weekend. We were talking about all the changes that are going on, and it was noted. It's like Kash Patel's been awfully quiet. What's happening? I mean, I'm guessing he's doing the hard work and putting his nose to the grindstone, and making sure that as he makes moves to reform the FBI and get the right people in place, he's dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Because Lord knows if he does one little misstep, they'll make his life hell. But it has been eerily quiet there. In the 2 weeks since he's been confirmed. Attorney General Pam Bondi last night on Fox, where she first revealed that she was going to release the Epstein files, and then, well, they weren't. Here she is talking about these documents that have now finally been delivered and the problems up in that FBI office in New York.
FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything, and a source had told me where the documents were being kept, Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Kash is also, now that we have Kash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Kash is going to, Director Patel, is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay. We'll get a detailed report on why the FBI didn't do what they were told to do by the Attorney General. Well, I'll look forward to a detailed report. How about some arrests? How about some firings for insubordination? I mean, yes, this guy, Dennehy, but again, he's going to become a martyr. He's going to become a superstar. He'll write his book. He'll be right there with James Comey in the Mount Rushmore of FBI martyrs.
He and Tapper will spend several segments crying about this. But I'm a little worried about this, frankly, Larry. I'm not feeling real confident with.
I will tell you, I am too. And because here's the thing, we want federal law enforcement to be respected. We want them to be pristine. We want them, considering the power we the people have invested in the Department of Justice and the FBI, and the kind of power they have over us in investigating us and prosecuting us. We want them to be the straightest of straight shooters, and this is the last chance. If Kash Patel with Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi can't fix this, then it is irreparable.
I want a USAID showing of people with their empty cardboard boxes coming out of these offices. I want I want Doge-like action. And you did say, cash has been eerily quiet. Maybe there are things going on. It's all. I want the same thing with Linda McMahon at Department of Education. I want to see someone outside the building, taking off the label, like they did at USAID.
That was a beautiful sight.
Yeah. So, it's not time. I really hope they step it up.
It's 7:23 March.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:37, and it's great to be back here behind the microphone after a couple of days off for family business. Thanks to Joe Concha yesterday and to Hans von Spakovsky for helping out. And, of course, thanks to Julie and Patrice for carrying the load. Coming up at 8:05, Adam Gullette, Accuracy and Media. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
I'm excited about the speech to the joint session of Congress tonight. President Trump's going to do a bit of a victory lap and lay out already what they've achieved. Joining us now to give a little preview of that and also about a bill that he is sponsoring now in the House of Representatives to emblazon the $100 bill with Trump's visage. He is Congressman Brandon Gill of Texas. Also, by the way, a member of that Oversight Subcommittee on D.O.G.E. Congressman Gill, thanks for joining us.
Larry, thanks for having me.
I mean, where do we begin? What do you expect to hear from the president tonight? And how do you think it's going to go over with your friends on the other side of the aisle?
Well, I don't think we have to think too hard to imagine how whatever he says is going to go with our friends on the other side of the aisle.
That's true.
But I think that what he's going to talk about is the direction that he's taking our country, and I hope at a very fundamental level. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about Trump, and I think that he really brought to the Republican Party, is he brought us back to first principles. He asked the very fundamental question of, for whom is our government supposed to operate, or in whose benefit? And his answer very succinctly was always, this is Americans first. And that influences or shows kind of in every single policy area. You think of immigration, where he was at the forefront of telling the United States what we already knew, which is that we need a border wall. And remember, he said that long before that was the cool thing to say. It's, today you can't be a Republican and be elected and not believe in a border wall. When President Trump first said that, he was attacked on all sides of the aisle. He was the first to, want to bring our foreign policy back to a more rational and realist foreign policy, something that explicitly operated in America's interest. And of course, he's brought a level of common sense back to Washington that has been gone for a long time, but really got bad under Joe Biden. So I think that I hope that it's a discussion of not only the first principles, but how they're being applied in this administration. And what that means really is all of his policy wins. He secured the border in a month. We've had a border crisis for decades now, and in record time, President Trump just secured it. You look at what he did and you think sometimes you can just do things. You can just solve this crisis. He brought common sense back to D.C. He's unleashing our energy. Yeah. We've got wins across the board. So I hope that's what he focuses on.
Congressman, it is really interesting watching just how uncomfortable people in Washington, sort of the swamp, is with common sense. People are just panicking and going off the rails. What have you seen among your Democrat colleagues, some of the more shocking reactions to, again, this common sense approach from everything from border security to foreign policy?
Well, I think that the reaction to what we saw a couple days ago in the White House with Zelensky is very telling, which is you have a guy who is embroiled in a war that he absolutely cannot win, that is killing hundreds of thousands of his own people every single year, and can only continue the slaughter and have any prayer of getting out of this with a victory if the United States continues to send him hundreds of billions of dollars. And even then, we risk a massive global conflagration. My point is, you have somebody who comes into the White House with no cards at all and disrespects the President of the United States. And on our side of the aisle, I think I was ecstatic to see President Trump and J.D. Vance stand up for themselves and, in effect, stand up for the American people, who I think in some ways have been getting swindled in this deal. But on the other side of the aisle, we've had a really, I think, strange reaction, which is that, sort of based on the assumption that we owe the rest of the world our wealth, and that whenever Zelensky comes knocking, we must by necessity give him whatever he wants. That's not how our federal government is supposed to operate. President Trump doesn't represent Zelensky in Washington. He represents the American people, and that's something that I think our colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't understand.
We're speaking to Congressman Brandon Gill of Texas, and he's giving us a preview of tonight's speech of President Trump before a joint session of Congress. And we've been admiring your work, along with Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, on the D.O.G.E. Subcommittee. But I got to ask, you've proposed this bill, the Golden Age bill, that would put Trump's face on the $100 bill, replacing Benjamin Franklin. A couple of things here. First of all, generally speaking, if you're going to put a president's face on a bill, shouldn't we wait until the end of his presidency? Things could go south. You never know. Number two, generally speaking, in America, we don't put living individuals on there. We wait until after they've passed, and it's a way of memorializing their memory. And finally, I'll be honest with you. So far, the House has not passed a lot of bills that got signed into laws, other than Lake and Riley bill. I mean, everything that Trump has done so far is executive orders, and they're great. But unless you guys get off the ball and focus on getting some legislation passed to codify those executive orders into law, it's all going to be undone anyway. So what have we got at the end of the day?
Well, I agree with you to a certain extent. So let me take those one by one here. First of all, regarding the bill itself. What was that?
I was just laughing because I was acknowledging the fact that I threw a lot at you there, and I apologize.
So first of all, regarding the bill itself, the bill specifies that by the end of next year, we're supposed to have a design for what would go on the $100 bill. And then 2 years after that, which would be right at the end of President Trump's term, and that's whenever future $100 bills would be supposed to have President Trump's name on it. So this is something that happens in a future date. Now, regarding being a living president, what we're trying to do here is get the ball rolling to memorialize President Trump. This is going to be a bill that you and I both know that would be very hard to pass, at least through the Senate. As we know, our friends on the other side of the aisle in the Senate, where we need 60 votes, are likely not going to be very amenable to something like this. But I do think that it's important for the House to show support for the president right now, particularly as he's being attacked viciously from the left and from the left-wing media. And this is a good way to memorialize him, in my opinion. You can see a lot of the things that we've been doing and that President Trump has been doing. He's been issuing executive order after executive order. He's doing exactly what he told the American people he was going to do, and it's been great. We've been a little bit slower in the House, and part of the reason for that is that we don't have a majority in the Senate. So we have passed lots of bills, actually, out of the House that have gone to the Senate and died. A good example was a bill yesterday that would have banned men from women's sports, and every single Democrat in the Senate voted against it.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point as well.
We've been doing our work, but it gets very difficult whenever you have a Democrat Party that is so unreasonable and so contrary to common sense that even very basic ideas like men and women are different and maybe boys shouldn't be in girls' changing rooms is controversial to them. So I think that we've got a lot of work to do to try and get this through, and that's why reconciliation is so important.
Yeah, amen to that. And we'll have you on to talk about that as that train starts rolling down the tracks. I appreciate you joining us, though. Yeah, one upside of last night's debacle in the Senate is that people can't claim there's no difference between the two parties anymore. I mean, there's a pretty clear difference when it comes to letting men into women's locker rooms and competing in their sports. Congressman Gill, have a great time tonight during the speech. It's going to be raucous. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, we will. Thanks for having me on.
Later this morning on The Chris Plante Show, President Trump with an address to Congress tonight. The Democrats are boycotting and tearing up copies of the speech. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
So you wake up in a world that has more tariffs on goods coming in and out of this country, starting with Canada and Mexico. It was announced that as of 12:01 last night, or this morning, I guess more accurately, the 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada took effect. Ditto 10% on Chinese imports. Then Canada responded with 25% tariffs on $100 billion worth of U.S. imports, which, by the way, $100 billion sounds like a lot, which, it is, but it's nothing close to what is coming in from Canada. Trust me, they need our products. They need to be able to ship things to us much more than we need to ship things to them. But it's interesting. There is a bit of a ripple effect here that we're already seeing. Yesterday, the day before these tariffs go in, Honda announced that to avoid Mexico tariffs on the Civic Hybrid that they manufactured in Mexico, they will now be manufacturing them in Indiana. So
there you go. Look at that.
That's part of what Trump was hoping to achieve here. You don't like our tariffs? Start making things here.
Yeah.
And that's obviously going to mean more jobs. But we'll see what happens here now that the tariffs are in place and how quickly they can resolve whatever issues need to be resolved.
Yeah, there's some concern. There's some concern out there. There's panic, of course. Everybody's screaming their head off. But there is some concerns, legitimate concern, that businesses will likely pass the costs to consumers. So we'll see if that happens. But boy, that move to Indiana, that's exactly what he wanted.
Well, exactly. And that's on the same day that announcement from Honda was made. He also had an announcement in the White House yesterday. The president of Taiwan Semiconductors announcing a $100 billion investment in making semiconductors in Arizona. It's estimated to mean 20,000 new jobs in an area
big.
where we were told only Asian manufacturers would utilize Asian employees and Asian work rules and work conditions, that we can't compete. Well, apparently we can compete in some way. Fox did a little infographic here. $14.1 billion from Nippon Steel, $20 billion from Hussein Sajwani, $500 billion over 4 years from Apple, $500 billion over 4 years from Stargate, $600 billion from Saudi Arabia, and now $100 billion from Taiwan Semiconductor. In just 5 weeks, President Trump has secured over $1 trillion
And
in
really
corporate
quickly,
investments
Taiwan
in
is
US.
smart. Taiwan is smart. They have China looming, and they know that the way to stay friends with the United States is this. That's called an economic arrangement, which if I'm correct, Zelensky could have had that same economic relationship that he turned his back on. So there you go.
That's right, which would have cost him nothing. And instead, on the day after the whole mineral rights thing falls apart, you've got Trump with Taiwan saying, look at this. Look what we've done here.
Friends.
It's 7:54.